Welcome to Christ the King High School in Middle Village, Queens, where tonight the Varsity Media Sports Network presents this Catholic League Brooklyn Queens showdown between the visiting Terriers of St. Francis Prep and the Royals of Christ the King. This CHSAA basketball showdown presented by Maspeth Federal Savings Bank. Good evening, everyone. Dylan Butler here. John Perez on the call as well. So good to be back in Queens, a pair of Queens powerhouses. Certainly St. Francis Prep, a better start than the Terriers expected. 5-0, 3-0 in the league. Big league wins against Laughlin and Zavarian, but obviously a step up here in competition today against the Christ the King team we just had on Sunday play their best game of the year and the best game, I think, of any team in the tri-state, maybe in the country, with that lopsided 30-point win over Cardinal Hayes. So it'll be interesting to kind of see which Christ the King team shows up and also how St. Francis Prep will fare against the Royals.
And that's exactly what St. Francis Prep head coach Jimmy Lynch said. He said, hey, if we get Christ the King that Cardinal Hayes got on Sunday, it's going to be a tough day for us. But, you know, Jimmy Lynch over these last couple of years has done a good job building the program. They're ready for the fight tonight, and Christ the King was hitting on all cylinders. We'll touch upon it in a second, but I think the biggest key to their success for Christ the King on Sunday was their unselfishness, and if they replicate that the rest of the season, they should be sitting pretty.
As we said, St. Francis Prep coming off a road win against the Clippers of Zavarian, 63-58. Their other big litmus test of the year was that first league home game against a very good Bishop Laughlin team, and that's where Jimmy Lynch first had the questions. Who are we as a team? How can our young guys step it up? And they did in a big way, beating Laughlin at home 67-63. In both of those games, the two best guys for St. Francis Prep were Josh Pasquarelli and Veer Anthony. Those are guys, it doesn't matter who they're playing, they are stepping up to the competition. Pasquarelli, the senior, bound for Marist, and Veer Anthony, just a sophomore, but already has Division I offers.
Veer Anthony has, if you were going based on what's in between the years, he's got the mentality of a fifth-year senior. He is so mature and so poised and way ahead of the curve, and I think that he's been the biggest part of St. Francis Prep's success. We know what we're going to see with him on the floor, but it's the leadership qualities that have given the Terriers their perfect start to the season.
Christ the King 3-2 on the season, 2-0 in league play, and as we said, coming off of an outstanding performance, 78-48 win over Cardinal Hayes. They were 2 points away from having 5 starters in double figures. They hit the Cardinals with all different sorts of guys stepping up. Brandon Williams with 19 and 7, Pong Quinfong with 14 and 15, Dwayne Pierce with this shot just before halftime, the walk-off, and I kind of think that was the impetus, because the third quarter, Cardinal Hayes Christ the King literally just ran away with it.
Fantastic job by Chris Sweeney, our TD today, and you know what? Those were the shots that basically put Christ the King on the map, just dunking all over Cardinal Hayes. They attacked the glass, they shot it from deep. Obviously, Pierce, I don't think he's going to hit another half-court shot. I'd love to see him do it again today. But they did a good job. Their shots weren't falling from downtown early on in the game, so they did a good job adjusting. Their defense was there. But you could really look at it as, okay, in the first quarter, it was the Pong show. Then the second quarter, it was the Pierce show. Brandon Williams stepped up in the third and fourth quarter. They've got so many weapons, and we didn't even mention Brandon Gardner as well. He's been on the shelf, not going to play tonight, but this is just a Christ the King that is loaded right now, and if they continue to be unselfish the way that they are, I can't see any team beating them when they have games like that.
That was a 33-30. So that shot by Pierce gave Christ the King the lead. It was 33-30 at the half. They started out the third quarter on a 17-2 run, outscoring Cardinal Hayes 25-9 in the third to run away with that game. Our players to watch for Christ the King in this one, we could have gone a bunch of different ways, obviously. We're going to go with Dwayne Pierce with that shot and Markel Alston. Pierce is a guy who Joe Arbitello, the Christ the King coach, said he's never seen him play better than that game on the Grand Concourse. And Alston, I love this matchup with Veer Anthony. The game within the game a pair of sophomore guards, a couple of Queens dudes just going at it. I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup.
They're the future of this league, Alston and Veer Anthony, and I thought Alston did a fantastic job just driving the bus the other day. Good job setting the pace, setting up his teammates, threw a couple of lobs in there. He's someone that Christ the King, when he is on his game in terms of finding the right shooter or getting the ball to the right space, Christ the King continues to be tough.
Let's take a look at some of the keys for this game for both teams. First, for St. Francis Prep, rebound, and that's a collective rebound. They will be undersized here. Most teams, I think, who play Christ the King will be. There's not a lot of teams that have like 6 or 7, 6'9" guys around. So it's a collective rebounding that's super important. Stay out of foul trouble is also huge. There's not a lot of depth on that St. Francis Prep team, and keep the Royals off balance. Jimmy Lynch, our head coach, is a disciple of the man-to-man defense, tough in your face. He said we might have to throw a zone here and there. We might have to press to keep Christ the King off balance. For the Royals, they've got to take care of the basketball. They have to defend the three-point line. And when Joe Albertello says stay level, they're coming off a 30-point win. They can't be feeling themselves right now because they know that St. Francis Prep, they're going to bring their lunch pails and come to work here today, so they can't look past that or think that they're like world beaters because of that Hayes win.
I was thinking about this on the drive in, and you know, when it comes to when do you want to play Christ the King, it's actually right now.
Yeah.
This is the game where you want to play them because they're on cloud nine. You've got the holiday break coming up, although there's never really a break in this league. It could be a potential look-ahead game, and that's what Arbitello does. He sets the expectations, tries to keep them level. But if you're St. Francis Prep, this is exactly when you want Christ the King.
Let's take a look at the starting lineup for both teams. First, for the visitors from St. Francis Prep, you got Veer Anthony, Nigel Moore, Josh Pasquarelli, Tyler Michelle, and Hao Chen. Largely a guard-heavy lineup today for St. Francis Prep, but Moore and Michelle, two guys, John, in this starting lineup who are starting to score double digits in both of the last two games. That's going to be critical for St. Francis Prep.
Better late than never, and when you're basically running a five-guard set, which St. Francis Prep does, you have to keep pushing the pace up for Christ the King and kind of keep them off balance. And you know what? Their speed can win them some games in this league. It's already done it in 5 opportunities this year.
St. Francis Prep coached by Jimmy Lynch in his 6th season, a St. Francis Prep 1999 graduate.
Thank you for your cooperation. One of the purposes of
Let's take a look at the Christ the King lineup after that moment of silence for the Royals. An unchanged lineup from their win Sunday. Why would you after a 30-point win, right? You've got Alston, Vanterpool, Dwayne Pierce, Pong Quinfong, and Brandon Williams. You mentioned the missing part of the equation a little bit here is Brandon Gardner, serving the second of a 2-game suspension after an ejection against Bishop Lachlan, the head coach of Christ the King in his 15th season, also an alum of the school that he coaches, Joe Albertello, a 1995 graduate of Christ the King. You can see behind us, actually, we're on the scorers table, so we're right across the way from you. But John waves hi to you folks at home. But across from us, John, a packed stands behind us. You can see it's filling in as well. It has that feel of one of those big-time Tuesday night Catholic League basketball showdowns.
Well, Dylan, when both schools are 5 miles apart, and you've got a bunch of middle village kids that go to St. Francis Prep and they want to come to the game, it's basically a sellout, and that's just the culture that's built here, especially on the other side for St. Francis Prep. Their fans are traveling. It's not that far of a travel, like we said. They're from the neighborhood as well. They kind of see this as their turf a little bit too, and looking to get the road victory here. But Christ the King selling out over the last couple of years, and you know what? They've had the prospects to do so. Why wouldn't you want to see Jose Alvarado, Raleigh Alkins before they became the players that they were? And that's just to name 2 of many many talented Christ the King Royals over the years.
I think an interesting litmus test here, kind of even for both teams, right? Like, how good is Christ the King? You were laying out the question on Sunday, how do you stop the Royals when they played the way that they did? Can they replicate that here tonight against St. Francis Prep? Or was that their best level? And for St. Francis Prep, look, it's been clear, and everyone has said it. You ask any pundit or coach or even probably referee, right? Like, your favorites this year are Christ the King, Stepanak, and Hayes in whatever order you want to put those three. The question then is, who's that fourth team, right? Someone else has to play in the semifinals. So that's what Jimmy Lynch is kind of wondering, too, coming into this one. This is like an early season test for his team. Where are we, right? Are we right below that level? Are we a couple of steps below? As you see the packed stands here in Middle Village, Queens. So I think it'll be an interesting litmus test for the Terriers as well.
It's a fantastic test. I think the separator, if you're going to go between 3 and 4, if you're just looking at St. Francis Prep and Cardinal Hayes, is Veer Anthony and point guard play. And Dylan, you've been around this league for many years, and you know that a good point guard can lead a team to the promised land, and that's exactly what St. Francis Prep has now. I'm not saying that Veer Anthony is Cole Anthony by any stance, but if you've got a young guy that can continue to push the paint, play at a high level at the guard spot, and set up his teammates, there's no reason to believe that St. Francis Prep can't continue to go far. As we look at our officials today, Dave Messino. We got the A-plus crew tonight. Dave Messino is the head referee, Carlos Martinez, and Orrin Barfield. Orrin Barfield's son, Orrin Barfield Jr., played for Archbishop Malloy.
There you go. Opening tip goes to the Royals. And here is that one-on-one matchup that we were looking forward to watching all game long. Veer Anthony on Markel Alston. And the Royals with a turnover early on. There's Josh Pasquarelli. He'll be a combo guard for a former Stanner himself, John Dunn, up at Marist College. A little bit of everywhere here tonight for the Terriers. And nearly another turnover. There's Hao Chen to Michelle Alston, harassing him. Back to Chen. Puts it on the court. Foul line jumper, rims around and out. And the rebound goes to Christ the King with Brandon Williams. Vanderpool gets it to Alston. Anthony tight on him. Off to Williams. There's Pong Quin Fong. Across the way to Vanderpool. An interior pass, and that also is another turnover. So similar, I think, to Sunday, a bit of a sloppy start for the Royals.
A little bit of a sloppy start. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. But St. Francis Prep throwing a little bit of a combo zone man-to-man over there, more like the box one, and doing a good job shifting on defense. They're going to have to throw everything and the kitchen sink defensively on Christ the King tonight.
Hao Chen gets it to Pasquarelli. Different defensive matchups here as well. Interesting to note. Pasquarelli goes to his left, and the layup is good.
One thing that I want to keep an eye on is, the former ball handler, but keep an eye on number 22 in white, Devin Vanderpool, the defensive number 1. He was fantastic, doing a good job on Elijah Moore the other day, and Pierce gets the first bucket of the night for the Royals.
Yeah, Pierce inside, and he's a guy, too, another one of those matchup problems, right, because he can score inside, out. He's thick. So he's a tough matchup for anybody that he's playing. There's Anthony in the lane, kicks it out. 3-point shot by Moore, rims around, no good. Williams, his second defensive rebound. Nearly a turnover there. Williams guarded closely by Moore. A lot of sophomores on this court right now. Vanderpool kicks it back out. Williams, the senior, bound for UCLA. That rims out, gets his own rebound. An extra pass and then a traveling violation called against the Royals.
Just an uncharacteristically slow start for Christ the King, turning the ball over in, 3 of their first 4 possessions. Hasn't exactly been vintage Christ the King basketball. St. Francis Prep will take it. Now they've got to hit their shots on the other end, and I'm interested to see if St. Francis Prep maybe sets the tone, tries to go inside on Christ the King early so it opens up the outside shot, or if they just start firing from deep.
Chen hands off. There's Tyler Michelle. Corner 3, good. Nigel Moore, the leading scorer of the freshman team a year ago. Pierce, too much on that one. And we'll go the other way. 5-2 early lead for St. Francis Prep.
Yeah, Pierce putting a little extra English on that finger roll, something that he should have just went harder to the basket or perhaps dunked it, if possible.
Kick out. Quinn Fong for 3, rims out, and Veer Anthony with the rebound. His legs are just like tree trunks, so big. Veer Anthony, terrific leader. You love when your sophomore acts like a senior. There is Anthony. Jumper off mark. Pierce inside. Quinn Fong can't get it to finish. Can't get it to go in. There's like a lid on that basket. Oh, an alley-oop attempt for Pasquarelli off the mark.
St. Francis Prep had numbers. A good job getting back on defense by Brandon Williams. And, you were talking about Veer Anthony and the maturity that he had. Well, even, Jimmy Lynch was telling us a great story yesterday about how in an open gym last year with a senior-laden team that St. Francis Prep was last year, in an open-run gym, the seniors were getting ready to run with the underclassmen, and, they're getting shots up being loose.
As Vanterpool knocks down the 3.
That'll tie the game at 5, but on the end is this rising sophomore, Veer Anthony, running, jumping rope, doing sprints, getting ready to go, and that kind of set the tone where everybody said, wow, this cat's pretty serious.
Nigel Moore. And a little miscommunication with Tyler Michelle. A turnover against the Terriers.
One other thing too, Dylan. We asked Jimmy Lynch, what should we be on the lookout for the first 2-3 minutes of this contest? He says, we don't want to be the first team to call a timeout. With the way that Christ the King's been playing, I'm surprised Arbitella hasn't called a timeout.
Vanterpool for deep. Front rim no good. Anthony, the rebounds. Alston contested. Here comes Veer Anthony. The explosion to the hole. His shot off the mark. This allows the Royals to run now. Pierce into the lane. No good. And then the quick outlet. So both teams a little bit sloppy right now.
Like the no call underneath, too, as Chen tried to draw the charge. That was Dave Messino under the rim. But, yeah, you knew that it'd be a little tough sledding early on for St. Francis Prep going into a road environment. But, they've gone punch to punch with Christ the King and done a good job defending.
Inside pass for Williams off the mark. And, well, we haven't had the first timeout. We do have the first substitution as Kyan Anthony comes into the game, checking in for Devin Vanterpool.
I think Kyan did a good job on the second unit, the quintessential super sub and good six-man off the bench for Christ the King against Cardinal Hayes. And, they're just so deep, and interested to see Kyan's role throughout the year.
Tough jumper by Anthony off the mark. Nigel Moore chases it down. There's a shot by Pasquarelli, no good. Moore the rebound. Touch shot for the 3, and it's Tyler Michelle. Terrific pass by Moore, and Michelle the finish.
And at times, Jimmy Lynch saying that he's a little bit too unselfish. Like to see that he was selfish there pulling up.
Yeah, he scored in double figures against Mount, and then again against Zavarian, and starting to feel himself in terms of shooting the ball a little bit more. A couple more subs now for Christ the King. Bryce Merchant checks in, as does TJ Oliver. Another edge for Christ the King in this matchup, in addition to having the height advantage, a deeper bench for the Royals. Anthony attacks, and he is fouled on his way up. It looks like it's Moore, and it will be Nigel Moore with the foul. His first and the team's first, and this will send Kyan Anthony, the son of Carmelo Anthony, to the foul line.
Interested to see how his role progresses as the year goes on, especially if like we said, there's foul trouble. You never know if there's any injuries. Could be sicknesses. Could be players just not playing. And Anthony, obviously, no pressure on him as you see the offers that he has already only as a sophomore, and he's done a good job adjusting to the varsity level.
I got to imagine that was a pretty easy phone call from Jim Boeheim to the Anthony house, right? Carmelo, of course, one of the greatest to play for the Orange and in the NBA as well. 8-7 the lead for St. Francis Prep. Inside out, Kyan Anthony rims out, no good. Pasquarelli the rebound. He'll look to run, pulls up, three-pointer off the mark. Another great job by Nigel Moore. Moore inside the three-point arc, no good. But I'll tell you what, there's a size disadvantage, but Nigel Moore, just 6 foot sophomore, he has chased down a couple of important rebounds for the Terriers.
Well, and they know that they're going to have to face, and most nights they're at a size disadvantage, St. Francis Prep. So they're used to playing at that level, and it hasn't fazed them so far.
Their biggest guy will check in a moment. Steal by Pasquarelli, under a minute left now, first quarter. Here comes Anthony, chased from behind. Good hustle there by T.J. Oliver. And here comes the largest of the Terriers, Osmana Sacco, the 6'7" freshman from Far Rockaway, wearing number 32.
Thought he had a good game against Laughlin, had some big blocks. He's going to be a major prospect for St. Francis Prep.
Pasquarelli for three. 11-7 the lead for St. Francis Prep. Eerily quiet here. It feels like there's a tension in the air. A foul called. That's the second foul now on Nigel Moore.
Well, on top of those three keys, Dylan, one of the keys for Jimmy Lynch has to be take the crowd out of it.
100%.
And that's exactly what they did. And some of it is Christ the King's doing, but St. Francis Prep has played better in this first quarter. They've gotten open looks. They've done a good job on transition defense, and they've benefited from Christ the King giving the ball away.
Shot clock off, so the Royals can hold for the last if they so choose. There's Anthony, waiting for the call from Arbitello. Oliver, 10 seconds. Vanterpool pulls up, elbow jumper, no good. Battle for the rebound, it goes to Pasquarelli. Throws it long, and a little bit more time, I think, than Pasquarelli thought there was. He probably could have taken a few more dribbles or even maybe found that pass down to Veer Anthony, but the quarter ends with that. 11-7 the lead. St. Francis Prep over Christ the King. You're watching the CHSAA Basketball Showdown presented by Maspeth Federal on the Varsity Media Sports Network.
You're watching the Varsity Media Sports Network, the home for New York high school sports.
Maspeth Federal Savings is here through it all. The ins and outs, the ups and downs. Through the winters, the summers, and even the spring of leaks, know that Maspeth has your back. From luxury sheets to balance sheets to dancing under the stars, your mission is our mission. And when our community calls, we proudly step forward. So whether you need it now or planning for tomorrow, through all the twists and all the turns, you can always find us right here in your neighborhood.
Welcome back to Middle Village, Queens. Dylan Butler, John Perez here with you. Start of the second quarter, and it's St. Francis Prep with an 11-7 lead over Christ the King.
St. Francis Prep doing a good job in transition in the first half, both offensively and defensively, and Christ the King very uncharacteristic, a little bit of a hangover from Sunday afternoon's emphatic win over Cardinal Hayes. Turned the ball over in 3 of their first 4 possessions, and St. Francis Prep doing a good job, particularly Nigel Moore. You take the good with the bad. The good for Moore is he's hitting the open jumpers. The bad is he's got 2 personal fouls, and if St. Francis Prep wants to continue to have their success, they just need to replicate the first quarter.
There's Sacco, and a hand check is called on Bryce Merchant. Sacco was a question for us when we spoke with Jimmy Lynch because, yes, he's only a freshman. He has played high level. Oh, what a pass inside to Pasquarelli. That might be the answer to the question we were saying, because we were wondering about this stage, and considering the size disadvantage you have, how much do you go to Sacco? And I think he's answered the call early on. Good defense now on Merchant.
He's got red ears. He knew you were talking about him.
Anthony kicks it out. Nolan Raymond down low. Sacco's feeling it a little bit. And guess what? Another hand check called. The second one on Merchant. So Merchant, after his second foul, will go to the bench, and Pong Quinfong will come in. And that size advantage you had a little bit there with Sacco on Merchant is gone with Quinfong in there. Anthony trying to get the call, doesn't get it. Here comes Oliver. A really solid backup as Williams was fouled on his way up.
You know, Dylan, as much as we talked about the unselfishness for Sunday's win for Christ the King, you kind of want to see somebody take over, at least to get Christ the King out of this tough stretch to start the game, and then eventually that leads to the unselfishness. But love to see Brandon Williams get to the line, maybe take on his shoulders this tough spot for Christ the King, and basically tell his teams, hey, everyone get on my back. I'm going to carry these guys. I'm going to carry you guys. You see the UCLA commit.
Had an unbelievable game against Hayes. 19 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. 10 of those points coming in that decisive third quarter as he goes 1 of 2 from the line.
Outscored him 25-9. I can't imagine that Cardinal Hayes will score 9 points in a quarter, only 9 points in a quarter for the rest of the season.
And they actually did it again in the fourth quarter, but certainly by then it was pretty clear that the Royals were coming out of the Grand Concourse with a win. Another 3 by Pasquarelli. His second, and he's already in double figures. 10 of the Terriers, 15 points. Cayenne Anthony, catch and shoot, no good. Williams swats it away. What hustle by Quinfong. Anthony loses it though, and there's Pasquarelli. Heads to Tyler Michelle. In transition, Veer, Anthony for 3. Back rim, no good. Anthony gets his own rebound, goes baseline at Williams! Off the glass and in.
Make your statement right now. I'm Veer Anthony, and I'm coming to play tonight. Largest lead for the Terriers.
Veer is here. Sacco, hands off. Raymond, and now the Terriers in transition. 3 rims in and out. Sacco, the tap putback opportunity, no good. 17-8, the lead for the Terriers. Williams, a little steps I thought.
Yeah.
Dwayne Pierce back in for Cayenne Anthony.
Listen, could have had some steps, could have had that shoulder bump too by Williams, but officials letting him play.
Feels like every nook and cranny here at Christ the King has a butt in a seat. Pong Quinfong inside.
And a fantastic pass by Pierce too, and easy bucket for Pong, and Pierce, good job on the no-look pass to get some separation for Quinfong.
Anthony for 3, no good. And there's Brandon Williams. A little bit of a mismatch there in terms of size. Vanderpool for 3, no good. Easy rebound for Williams. Put back attempt, back rim, no good. So you got Williams at 6'9", and it was Nolan Raymond at 5'10", guarding him.
I pose the question the way that these two teams have been playing.
Sacco, front rim on that 3 attempt. Veer Anthony chasing it down. Michelle, nice fake to the basket. No good. Alston ahead of the field. Layup, good! And the foul.
Alston within third gear getting down the floor. Easy lay-in for himself. And, my question to you, Dylan, was going to be not so much can St. Francis Prep keep up with the size of Christ the King. Can Christ the King keep up with the speed of St. Francis Prep? And Alston proving the answer to that, getting down the floor. And, Christ the King, we talk about how big they are. They're also a fast team as well, and they might have to win with their speed tonight.
Alston completes the three-point play. 17-13. As losing it on the baseline, or they say it's going to stay here? It'll be St. Francis Prep ball on the baseline. Anthony gets it to Sacco, guarded by Pong. The double comes, Sacco dribbles out of it, top of the key. Raymond for three. Timeout, St. Francis Prep.
St. Francis Prep clicking on all cylinders. That three ball makes it a 20-13 lead for St. Francis Prep. And you know what? They haven't hit all of their threes, but they've hit the threes when they've mattered, and a fantastic job in this first half. Jimmy Lynch has to be happy. Let's take another look at this last play. Good job getting some separation there, and then up top, Kinfong gets caught in a switch and buried by Nolan Raymond.
Raymond, the junior, averaging nearly 2.5 points a game, a guy that has to provide that long-range shooting, really good on-ball defending. Generally the guy who would spell Anthony and maybe get a few minutes in that point guard position, but obviously playing a little bit off-ball right now with Anthony still in there. But the junior from Queens Village knocking down a big shot as the Terriers have that early 20-13 lead.
Interested to see the adjustments that Christ the King makes. Well, Jimmy Lynch already broke his rule. He's the first coach to call a timeout. But you know what? If you were to tell him, hey, you're going to have a 7-point lead when you do call that, I think he'd sign up for that.
It didn't come after a run. It's good. It's good when you call the timeout after a made three while you're still leading by 7. Of course, Lynch follows the legendary Tim Leary, the late, great Tim Leary, one of the greatest to coach in a league that is renowned for its incredible coaches, from Jack Curran, of course, and Jack Alisi, just to name two. Shot off the mark by Williams. Vanterpool, the inbound underneath. Up top to Pierce. Guarded by Anthony. Good look inside. And there's the finish by Williams. Quickly down the court. There is Sacco. You could see why in a small sample size, John, why there's a pass inside. Raymond, the extra pass, goes awry. And there goes Alston. Ahead of the field is Quinfon. Great defense by Vier Anthony. But I was going to say, you could see in a small sample size why Jimmy Lynch says that Sacco has that potential to be a very, very special player at St. Francis Prep.
And I think that just goes to show the evolution of the big over the last 10 years or so, is that, yes, he hit his growth spurt and probably will continue to grow, but you could tell he grew up as a guard and learned how to shoot at a very early age. And then when you add the size in there, he's a complete package.
Yeah, could be that high major guy. And honestly, as Pierce, tough jumper from the foul line. That's a guy that St. Francis Prep really hasn't had historically, right? You look at some of the Mount Rushmore of St. Francis Prep players, the Drew Samuels, Fitzgerald. Like, these are guys who played for, like, Marist and BU, and even the Stiff brothers played at St. Bonaventure and St. John's. Like, you haven't had, like, we had Calipari in the gym at Cardinal Hayes. He hasn't found his way to Fresh Meadows. Not yet.
No, not yet, but certainly an opportunity to do so. And
foul on Pierce.
Yeah, all the tools are there. St. Francis Prep kind of reminds me of that early on Malloy team that had a young Cole Anthony, Khalid Moore. They don't have a Moses Brown, although not many teams do have 7-footers. Christ the King comes pretty close.
Yeah.
But if you can win with your guards, we saw this with Zavarian in, 2017, winning with 5 guards over Bishop Laughlin?
This is St. Francis Prep team a year ago, went 22-4. Attacking the basket is Anthony, no good. Ahead of the field is Alston, and he will finish on the break.
And a very senior-laden team last year, too. And, sometimes when you have so many young players, you think you're going through a lull. But for St. Francis Prep, they're picking up right where they left off.
A little bit hectic right now for St. Francis Prep. Good fake by Michelle. Blocked inside. Another block. Quinn Fong with one there. And you felt that might have been one of those possessions, John, where the Terriers would have been wise just to kick it out, run their offense a little bit. Nice fake. Vanterpool to the basket. And another timeout as the Royals, they were trailing by 7 not too long ago, and now they've got a 1-point lead.
Yeah, they've taken advantage of that last timeout called by St. Francis Prep before this one, and just doing a good job getting down. And when they were going to deploy their starters back on, it was only a matter of time. As look at Vanderpool, so good on the pump fake, getting some space from Chen, cuts to the basket, and an easy bucket.
Vanterpool, of course, his dad was the assistant coach of the Brooklyn Nets, David, for a few years, so he has that great basketball IQ. Also probably the best defender for Christ the King. Let's take a look at the Royals' upcoming schedule. See it there. They go to St. Peter's, a dangerous St. Peter's team. The Eagles defeated Stepanak. Actually, it was right here at Christ the King, one of those special sort of Saturday showcase days. And Menlo from California comes here to Middle Village. They'll play St. Raymond's out at Rutgers, and then Friday night against Archbishop Malloy. Always special in the Catholic League when it's Christ the King and Malloy. So many incredible battles throughout the years. And you could throw in St. Francis Prep and Malloy in. Like, I think any of those Brooklyn Queens teams playing each other on a Friday night will pack the house.
100%. Obviously, the Battle of the Boulevard is also a marquee game. And, that St. Peter's team, too, going to be an emotional game on December 23rd. Yeah. They're honoring longtime head coach Charlie Driscoll as well. A very inspired Eagle bunch.
And they'll be at home as well. So, tough trip for Christ the King. Not that they haven't had tough trips, but there's Chen. Buries the 3 from the top of the key. You wonder, you go to London, you go to California, probably the more daunting of those 3 trips is going to Staten Island.
Oh, yeah.
On a Friday.
Yep.
Big shot for the Terriers, and now Chen with the interception. Ahead of the field is Moore. Pulls up, front rim no good. That was an important 3 because it ended an 8-0 run for the Royals as Quinn Fong called for the travel.
Fortunate turnover for St. Francis Prep because now they can hold for the final shot. They've already got the lead. Don't turn the ball over. Get an open look. Jimmy Lynch will set up his offense now, and going into the locker room with the lead on the road would be monumental for the Terriers.
Anthony crosses midcourt. And you can see on our screen, Jimmy Lynch follows him there. The ball deflects out. It'll stay with St. Francis Prep. Chen gets the inbound, guarded closely by Quinn Fong. And a reach-in foul calls against Quinn Fong.
Not happy with the call either by Barfield, but
I think there's similarities in Chen and Quinn Fong's game in that they're so fundamentally sound, both of them. I think Quinn Fong, a bigger player, a year older, more polished, has more to his game, but Chen has been a solid player for the Terriers. Little runner in the lane off the mark, battle for the loose ball. Maybe another half-court shot. Williams! Ooh, it was on, but just a little bit off. And the Terriers with a 23-21 lead at the half. We're joined now at halftime by St. Francis Prep head coach Jimmy Lynch. Joked before the game he didn't think he'd be in this spot. He didn't think he'd be talking to us now, but I think he's happy to do so. Jimmy, what'd you think of your team's performance in the first half?
The kids are giving a major effort right here. They're playing their hearts out. Whoever we go to on the bench, whoever we have in the game, they're sticking to the script and they're playing their hearts out, and I couldn't be happy.
How about the job of Nolan Raymond coming on as well, hitting a couple of open shots? What have you seen out of his game?
Nolan's been sick for the last 2 weeks. Whatever he had, it's run its course. He didn't even get to play in the last game when we played Zavarian. So he's getting some minutes today. He's making the most of his minutes.
Jimmy, what do you want to see from your guys in the second half?
We're afraid of the knockout punch. You know, that's what we're worried about. We're afraid of the 6-0, 8-0 run. I didn't want to call that second timeout that I had to, but I felt it just kept us in the game a little bit. So as long as we can avoid the big run by them, they're going to have highlight plays, they're going to have dunks, they're going to leak out, they're lethal in transition. As long as we can avoid the big run, hopefully we're in it with a couple minutes to play.
Jimmy Lynch, head coach, St. Francis Prep, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So halftime here at Christ the King, and it's St. Francis Prep, a 23-21 lead over Christ the King. You're watching this CHSAA basketball showdown presented by Maspeth Federal Savings on the Varsity Media Sports Network.
You're watching the Varsity Media Sports Network, the home for New York high school sports.
Hi, I'm Gene Sterator, CBS Rules Analyst and longtime sports official. For the adults watching this video, you grew up in a world where officials, umpires, and referees for youth sports took their place regularly and reliably ahead of game time. Today, unfortunately, it's getting harder and harder to fill those jobs. Videos showing abusive treatment of officials multiply on social media, and there have been consequences for the dreadful behavior of players, fans, and coaches. Massive shortages of officials now lead to games being canceled, and the positive effects of athletic competition are at critical risk for this generation and those to come. I'm hoping we all can begin to see youth competition through a different lens. Today, mistreatment of officials has become normalized, and we are facing an abnormal future where no officials to hire means no games on the schedule.
Any call, any decision, any human effect on wins and losses has become subject to not just withering criticism, but physical threats. There's a vicious cycle at work. Fans chase away officials, and there's a smaller pool to draw from, which makes it harder to get quality, well-trained people in position. The entire game suffers.
Did you know, according to the National Federation of High Schools, 80% of new officials quit the game after just 2 seasons because of abusive behavior from the stands and sidelines? This sort of verbal abuse and threatening behavior takes a toll on all officials and makes them leave the game altogether.
Did you know, from 2018 to 2022, an estimated 50,000 high school referees, roughly 20%, have quit. Half of the remaining referee population is at least 50 years old, but young officials are rarely staying more than 3 years in the job.
If the number of officials working contests in all sports doesn't begin to increase, there won't be enough officials to work the games. That means schedules will get cut, teams or even sports might get canceled. In many states, this is already happening.
Remember that officials are invested in what they do. Many officials have regular, full-time jobs, and they're sacrificing time away from their families. Try to demonstrate empathy. Put yourself in their position. Think how you would feel about getting yelled at throughout your workday.
Yelling and arguing with officials sends the wrong message to young players. According to Play by the Rules Sports Advocacy, it teaches them that it's not okay to make a mistake. They can blame others for their actions. They can disrespect authority figures. And it's okay to be rude and selfish.
You know, officials enforce rules, keep competitions fair, and make player safety a priority, allowing youth sports to be a valuable arena for growth. If we can all just work together and be more empathetic to not just the officials, but everyone else in youth and high school sports, we can then preserve what many of us have embraced about athletics. And you and I know the benefits of sports, right? Let's spread that gratitude and be proud of what we can build and not blind to how it's being torn down. Calling officials cheaters or corrupt, it's not a game.
Insulting referees, it's not a game.
Threatening officials, it's not a game.
Berating young umpires, learning the ropes, it's not a game.
Violent language in the stands, it's not a game.
Verbal abuse from the sideline, it's not a game.
Screaming at a referee in the parking lot, it's not a game.
So what happens now? Your response in the heat of the moment is the only thing you totally control, and we have an experiment for you to try. Simply stated, just cheer for your child or the team you're there to support. Move that desire to lash out to a different place and encourage without rage. Your child's sporting memory should be about how you helped inspire and not about how you caused embarrassment.
Maspeth Federal Savings is here through it all. The ins and outs, the ups and downs. Through the winters, the summers, and even the spring of leaks. Know that Maspeth has your back. From luxury sheets to balance sheets to dancing under the stars, your mission is our mission. And when our community calls, we proudly step forward. So whether you need it now or planning for tomorrow, through all the twists and all the turns, you can always find us right here in your neighborhood.
Varsity Media is the tri-state area sports leader. We offer an array of services for any team, coach, player, athletic director, and parent. From game film to live streaming, we are available to cover your event anytime, any place. Looking for an enhanced experience? How about a professional broadcast with multiple camera angles, announcers, graphics, and instant replay? Need a highlight reel? We produce individual highlights for college recruiting and team highlight videos for end-of-season banquets. And when it comes to social media, nobody has you covered better than us. Hype videos, sideline highlights. We can tailor custom videos to make your team stand out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Why waste your time dealing with anyone else? When it comes to sports video, Varsity Media stands alone. Contact us at 516-403-2050 or online at varsitymedia.net.
Maspeth Federal Savings is here through it all. The ins and outs, the ups and downs. Through the winters, the summers, and even the spring of leaks. Know that Maspeth has your back. From luxury sheets to balance sheets to dancing under the stars, your mission is our mission. And when our community calls, we proudly step forward. So whether you need it now or planning for tomorrow, through all the twists and all the turns, you can always find us right here in your neighborhood.
If you're an event organizer looking for a media company to cover live streaming, action photography, and game video for your event, look no further. Varsity Media travels throughout the Northeast covering weekend tournaments, showcases, and championships. Contact us today to learn about our services and packages at 516-403-2050 or visit us online at varsitymedia.net.
Welcome back to Christ the King. Dylan Butler here with John Perez and the Varsity Media Sports Network. Third quarter about to begin. It's the visiting Terriers, those guys in that huddle with a 2-point lead over the host Royals. Some scoring from the first half. Leading the way for all scorers was Josh Pasquarelli with 9, and then a whole bunch of other guys for St. Francis Prep with like 3 and 2. And leading for Christ the King was the combination of Devin Vanterpool and Markel Alston with 5 apiece.
We talked about the unselfishness and how a different Royal was the star of the show on Sunday. We haven't seen those 4 yet. We had a glimpse of Brandon Williams, but St. Francis Prep has done a fantastic job shutting down Pong Kin Fong. They've done a great job of kind of stopping Alston as well and stopping the passing lanes. And credit St. Francis Prep. High marks on their defense. They've hit the open shots. And now that they're getting a healthier Nolan Raymond, they're a tough team to stop in the first half.
You expect a run from the Royals, and they had a big one in the third quarter on Sunday afternoon. Will they have another one here? Quinn Fong inside for 2, and we are tied at 23.
And that's what you need right away, a quick hitter, get 2 points on the board, and start to snowball and have a good third quarter if you're the Royals.
Now a turnover, and it's Alston, guarded by Pasquarelli. Alston throws it inside. A couple of Royals there. Goes to Pierce, who kicks it back out to Vanterpool. Down low to Williams. Hao Chen guarding him. Nice spin move by Williams. His shot too long, though. Pasquarelli in transition. Kick out. Moore. No good. And Williams, another rebound. Start of the third quarter feels similar to the first quarter. Except I think there's about an extra 200 people in the building as there was at the beginning of the game. Parking, we hear, was a little bit difficult to find on a Tuesday night here in Middle Village.
Probably had to park in the BJ's parking lot.
Alston creates the separation and buries the 3.
Some contact there, but Alston burying the 3, doing a fantastic job getting separation. And if you give him some space, he can light the lamp a few times.
5-0 right away. Hao Chen for 3. No good. Vanterpool the rebound. Alston in transition. Was in between decisions there. Lost it. And it's Anthony. Leaking away is Moore. And he'll get called for the travel. Heard some footsteps with Williams coming his way.
Heard them. He saw them. He saw the train coming, looked at him, and saw where he was on the floor. And, a little slippery track underneath, but one that he wishes he could have had back. And you know what? That just shows the intimidating presence that Brandon Williams has.
Another empty trip there for the Terriers. They had a 23-21 lead. It's never great at math, but I think I'm pretty confident to say that all the points here in this third quarter have been scored by the Royals. Hao Chen called for the foul down low, his first and the team's first of this second half. Alston inbound underneath to Quinn Fong. No good. Second chance, no good. Williams, the tap back.
And that's where the size comes into play. And Pasquarelli really couldn't box out, and Williams, with about 6 inches on him, doing a good job of tapping it back in.
7-0 run for Christ the King. They lead at 28-23. Look at this. Quinn Fong guarding Anthony. And Anthony takes him to the basket, and a foul was called on the way. It's on Pong Quinn Fong, his second and the first in the second half. Chen, Anthony for 3, rims around, no good. He's had a tough time of finding his shot, John, in this game. Great defense by Nigel Moore.
And he's had open looks. He just hasn't buried them.
Michelle stops, foul line jumper, front rim, no good. Another one of those looks that was just there for St. Francis Prep.
Yeah, and eventually you have to knock them down. And what Jimmy Lynch said before going into the locker room is that you know that Christ King was going to go on their runs, have their leak outs, and you just have to compete with them. And
Great job by Hao Chen. Forces the jump ball, and the Terriers get the ball in the alternate possession. And that's a little bit of what Hao Chen brings you, man. He forces those things. He sets those solid screens. He'll draw those charges. All those things that maybe don't show up in a box score, but certainly show up in the win column for you on any given day. Is Anthony in the lane. Tough jumper. No good. And here come the Royals the other way. Pierce. Bouncer. Quinn Fong in the lane.
Christ the King coming out to play. Not sure what Arbitello said in the locker room, but it is working for the Royals right now. They are soaring and clicking on all cylinders, and Jimmy Lynch, boy, did he need that full timeout.
All Christ the King right now, and see the look again. Pierce to Quinn Fong. Terrific layup for the junior, and Quinn Fong's made a big change in his game this year. He was a sophomore a year ago who was known as a shooter. He's brought the ability, as we just saw there, to get to the lane, to play hard defense, to buy into this Royals team concept, and the offers have come. Let's take a look at some of the past champions, and there's a lot of Christ the King here, as you would expect. 2010, 11, 13, and 14, and 15, all Christ the King. Those were the early days for Joe Arbitello. He said, I never would have, I thought maybe one championship in my first 10, 11 years, not as many as we've had there. And you see a lot of Christ the King. You see a little bit of St. Raymond's and Zavarian in those years. Stepanak, obviously, and Cardinal Hayes more recently. Those are the three teams that we expect to be among those battling for that hardware this coming March.
Yeah, that 2009-2010 Christ the King team, so special on so many levels. First Federation title by both the girls and the boys team when they went up to Glens Falls, winning those championships. Kareem Thomas hitting a big three. I believe they beat Javon Pinkston of Bishop Laughlin in the final, triple overtime final. But yeah, having said that though, Dylan, the St. Francis Prep team, they're not on that list, but they certainly feel that they can get there. And at first, it's going to have to come on this timeout and kind of build their way back in. But I always wonder, as some of these pundits here that cover the CHSAA, what the narrative would be if Christ the King did not win in 2019. And it would just be that long spell, kind of, because you look at the Christ the King Royals kind of like the Yankees, right? In that if they don't win in a couple of years, well, then what's wrong? But any other program would do anything to have the success that the Royals have had historically, not just in the last decade.
Listen, I got a Facebook message when they were 1-1 asking me what was wrong with them. I said, they just went to London. They lost to Paul VI, one of the best teams in the country. They're fine. Michelle with the traveling violation. But that's the tradition of excellence, right? And you can go through the players from Khalid Reeds and Derek Phelps and Lamar Odom and just all down the line. Jason Williams, Jason with a Y Williams, as Alston to the lane. A blocking foul is called underneath.
I'm glad that I'm finally here to actually talk about that because, yes, those are the Mount Rushmore Royals. But we also have to talk about some of the success that they've had recently, too. Jose Alvarado, Raleigh Alkins, Tyler Cohen, Omar Calhoun, John Sevier. Who else am I missing? I know that, listen, they might not touch that Mount Rushmore, but if you're going to have a Mount Rushmore of the Arbitello Royals, they're certainly up there with Alvarado being the best player that he's had, I think, in the last decade.
I wasn't even done. I was Jason Sapola. I had a few more to go there as well.
Kareem Thomas, Roland Brown,
Eric Barkley, Omar Cook. This incredible litany of excellent players. It's something special to wear this Royals jersey as Alston to the line to shoot two. And we said it on Sunday as well. Those guys we just mentioned, Speedy Claxton, Eric Barkley, Omar Cook, all sophomore starting point guards. That's what this guy has to face this year. And he's done a really good job maybe dealing with that internal pressure, but also just running the show for the Royals.
Well, I think when you come to Christ the King to play basketball, you know that there's going to be pressure, whether it's the boys or girls team. The girls team, I guess you could say, the best high school program in the country as well. Bob Mackey does a fantastic job, a Hall of Famer, if he's not already. And is a certain type of breed to play Christ the King basketball, and all these student athletes exude that.
It's an 11-0 run right now, and again, you hark back, I think, to Sunday. It was 17-2 to start the third quarter for Christ the King, and that created the separation from Cardinal Hayes, and which was a 3-point lead for them at the half. So dangerous times right now for the Terriers. Brandon Williams stops, foul line jumper, no good. An important possession for St. Francis Prep. Pasquarelli. Kick out. Anthony for three. No good. Michelle tracks down the rebound. Extra pass. Hao Chen now for three. That also off the mark. Pasquarelli, the rebound. He goes to the hole, and that bounces in.
That's all you need for St. Francis Prep. You need one. That makes it a 7-point game, although it felt like it was a double-digit lead for Christ the King. Exactly what Prep needed.
Big rebound by Anthony off that Vanterpool miss. Understandably, as there's Michelle now for three, the Terriers may be a little bit reluctant to get inside with all those 6'9" dudes hanging around. And a traveling violation called against Quinn Fong. And that also speaks then to one of the keys that Arbertello mentioned for Christ the King coming into this game, which was defend the three-point arc.
And you know what? I'm not sure if Christ the King has necessarily done that or St. Francis Prep just hasn't hit their shots. Now, having said that, Christ the King hasn't made it easy, but a lot of open looks for St. Francis Prep. They just haven't gone down. Maybe the lid is still above the rim. I don't know, but that could change here.
Pasquarelli into the lane, no good. Pierce coming off his best game as a Royal. Oliver, no good. Pierce taps it back out. Inside to Vanterpool, back to Pierce, and he'll finish at the lane, at the hole.
You know, one thing that's been a constant for Christ the King down low is that their rebounders tap the ball back out. They don't secure it with two hands, and because of that, they get second and third chance opportunities.
Kyan Anthony inside.
Good job just filling the lane by Anthony, and an easy bucket.
11-point lead now for Christ the King. A tough shooting night for the sophomore point guard for St. Francis Prep. Here's the freshman Sacco. Pasquarelli for three. And that's a little bit of the issue. Now, the longer rebounds have gone to St. Francis Prep because they've tracked them down, right? But when the ball dies, as it did there, St. Francis, Christ the King, with their size, certainly more likely to get those rebounds. Approaching the final minute of the third quarter, it's been another dominant third quarter for the Royals. Three-pointer by Anthony, no good. Vanterpool, the rebounds. Back to Kyan. And a hand check called on Michelle. Michelle's first and the team's third. Beer Anthony comes out, a little bit of a breather in the final minute of the third quarter. And he's replaced by Troy Faison. Faison, another freshman. You've got two freshmen on the court right now for St. Francis Prep. Vanterpool, tough jumper. He's got 7. Michelle inside. Pump fake. Here's Sacco, attacks it, goes underneath. Williams got the rejection. Sacco, the putback, can't get that to finish. And now Christ the King, shot clock is off. They can hold for the final shot of this third quarter.
Would love to know what the magic words were by Joe Arbertello, but his team has responded in bunches in the third quarter.
It might have been rinse and repeat from Sunday afternoon. That shot by Williams off the mark, but it's been all Christ the King in this third quarter. 38-25, the lead for Christ the King. at the end of 3 quarters. You're watching this Catholic League Basketball Showdown presented by Maspeth Federal Savings on the Varsity Media Sports Network.
You're watching the Varsity Media Sports Network, the home for New York high school sports.
Maspeth Federal Savings is here through it all. The ins and outs, the ups and downs. Through the winters, the summers, and even the spring of leaks. Know that Maspeth has your back. From luxury sheets to balance sheets to dancing under the stars, your mission is our mission. And when our community calls, we proudly step forward. So whether you need it now or planning for tomorrow, through all the twists and all the turns, you can always find us right here in your neighborhood.
Can't think, John Perez, of a more appropriate sponsor for this game than Maspeth Federal Savings, man. They got their main branch down there, 69th Street, and another location right by St. Francis Prep. This is their NBA championship game, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. No, and I mean, just a fantastic location on Grand Avenue, or 69th Street, for Maspeth Federal Savings Bank. Wonderful sponsor, wonderful bank. Open an account today. I was enrolled in one of those savings plans when I was a kid, collecting the interest, and really showed me the value of $1.
There we go.
That was 100 years ago.
$17-2 in that third quarter for the host Royals. Anthony, no good. A tap inside by Dwayne Pierce. He's got 8. And it's the largest lead of the game for Christ the King. Foul called on Oliver. His first and the team's third of this second half.
I think if we're going to put labels on some of these players for Christ the King, then the unsung hero has to be Pierce, right? He's someone who always seems to be in the right place at the right time. X factor on defense is Devin Vanterpool, and obviously you've got the stars in Williams when Gardner comes back, and Pong King Fong. But Pierce is just doing a fantastic job today. Might not show up in the stat sheet.
Pasquarelli, 3, no good. Put back, and the foul by Sacco.
Good job finishing through contact. You can see why he's got the base to be a major prospect. Good job camping underneath and does what a big does best, getting the rebound and the hoop in the harm.
Sacco, terrific hands and feet. Completes the three-point play, can shoot the ball. And it's that mentality that he has as well. He came in as a freshman. Who's the first guy who kind of welcomed him and kind of showed him the ropes for this St. Francis Prep team? It was Veer Anthony. He said, listen, big man, I was in your shoes. Maybe not those size 17s you're wearing, but I was in the same shoes a year ago. As Bryce Merchant steps out and buries the 3. He knows, Veer Anthony said to Sacco, what it's like to be a freshman on the varsity team and what the expectations are.
And Veer Anthony is going to be doing that a lot for the upcoming classes for St. Francis Prep, just a leader on and off the court.
Pasquarelli attacks the rim, and he's fouled by Merchant. His third, the 5th on the team, and Pasquarelli will go to the line to shoot 2. A guy who's averaged 17 points a game. First free throw, no good. He'll go play at the next level, as you mentioned before, at Marist, where he'll join. One of the leaders of last year's team as well, Jaden Daughtry. So he goes 1 of 2 from the line, Pasquarelli. And that was one of the questions about St. Francis Prep this year. You lose a Daughtry and a Latique Briscoe as Pierce muscles his way to the basket. Those were 2 first-team All-CHSAA players a year ago. How do you replace those guys? You do bring back this guy, Pasquarelli, who finds 2 more in the lane, but you need now guys who are freshmen a year ago, sophomores now, and freshmen now to step up into big roles. And through the first 5 games of the year and into this game as well, they've done just that.
I think when you play so many young players, it could also be a double-edged sword in that they don't have the experience, so that could hinder them. But I think it could be one of their strengths because they don't know how to lose, right? And they don't know what the expectations are for them. It's just go out there and ball, and that's what St. Francis Prep has been doing, and just some good building blocks for the future. Obviously had a tough third quarter, but fighting hard in the fourth, trying to chip away, still down 14 points, but the building blocks are there. This is a very good St. Francis Prep team that is just running into a red-hot buzzsaw Christ the King Royal squad.
Kick out to Alston. Pong, Quinn Fong. No good. Anthony the rebounds. Sacco tries to muscle his way on Quinn Fong, and they'll say that he stepped on the baseline. And they call him for a foul.
Well, Quinn Fong getting a warning from Carlos Martinez, but rightfully upset. He got poked in the eye by Sacco on the three on the other end, then Sacco through the shoulder, and you know what? That's a veteran crew there, and Carlos Martinez coming in, diffusing the situation, and play resumes.
Anthony, short. And this allows now the Terriers to run. Pasquarelli, surrounded by Royals, back out to Anthony, kicks it down low. There is Sacco for two more. And a timeout by St. Francis Prep.
Good timeout there by Jimmy Lynch. Give your team a little bit of a breather and kind of relax, try to find your way back in. And with the full timeout, you know, St. Francis Prep obviously wants to get back into this game, but you know, Dylan, that there's no easy game in this league, and I don't want to say that this game's over, but the sun will rise tomorrow on the league for St. Francis Prep.
Speaking about the road ahead for the Terriers, they go to Arby's, not the one right by St. Francis Prep, but
or the one right here on the gravesite of Niederstein's.
That's right. You go to the Arby's Classic in Bristol, Tennessee. They'll play 4 games there next week. They're not sure yet of their first opponent because it's like a play-in game to take them on. It's Knox Webb from Tennessee or Tabernacle Baptist Christian Academy from the Bahamas. And they'll host Epic South. And then it's St. Raymond's and Zavarian. That's St. Raymond's game, Varsity Media Sportscast.
Tough schedule ahead. Interested to see George Lopez's team on the Varsity Media Sports Network. Ty Turnage was a freshman point guard last year, now a sophomore like Vera Anthony, and boy, these sophomores are taking over this year.
When I see a Ty Turnage, I just feel very old because I remember watching him. I swear he might probably like 5 years old, just a little guy as his coach, his dad, Billy Turnage, former Holy Cross assistant, then the head coach at Wings. Would always see him kind of around as Quinn Fong off the timeout. Gets the basket and the foul.
Tic-tac-toe. Good job breaking the press for Christ the King. Anthony, nice feed down low. And Quinn Fong with the hoop, the foul, and a chance for 3 the old-fashioned way.
So Chen with the foul. And Quinn Fong to the line. Again, a solid game for him, 14 and 15 against Cardinal Hayes. Unable to complete the three-point play, but the lead is substantial right now for the Royals, 47-33. There's Michelle. Sacco steps out. Quinn Fong, ooh. Anthony. The ball will stay for the Terriers.
Yeah, I'll give you a few extra gray hairs if you're Joe Arbitello throwing it at your own hoop.
Michelle 3 rims around. And Quinn Fong will play a little bit of point forward for a moment before he hands off to the point guard in Alston. Vanterpool. For the Royals, you can afford now to take some time off the clock and get the most out of these possessions. Quinn Fong for 3. Rims out no good. Pierce the rebound, and he was held on the way. Michelle called for the foul.
You know, in the second half, the only thing that hasn't gone right for Christ the King is their shots from distance. But either way, they've done a good job pushing the tempo, rebounding, and by rebounding, really just tapping the ball back out to their own players and getting second and third chance opportunities, taking advantage and finding the open man.
That shot off the mark. Michelle hands it to Anthony.
Might have banged knees with Pierce. He's really hobbling, holding on to that right knee.
He's a gamer, though, is Veer Anthony. And you can see out of necessity, he'll be in here. And Michelle, a kick out. And that's another turnover for the Terriers. So St. Francis Prep considering the time and score. They're going to have to press. Face on back in. Both.
So what happened was a late sub. That's all the confusion in front, and Arbitello was talking, or at least trying to get Dave Messino's attention, the referee that was in the screen, and Lauren Barfield saying, well, he got in time, apparently.
Alston. Up top to Vanderpool. It's got to feel good for these Royals. So many games away from home to this point. Vanderpool, the corner 3. They start the season with those 2 games in London where they lost to Paul the 6th and they beat Pace Academy. Then they went to Laughlin, right? Never an easy place to play. They win that one, 63-55, and they go out to California to play Sierra Canyon. They go out to Cardinal Hayes. So actually, this is their home opener of the year. As hard as it's hard to believe, considering how close to Christmas we are.
Yeah, and I guess it just goes to show that they felt like the road was their home, and they were accustomed to just not playing at home. And you know what, too? I was wondering in the first half if, with Christ the King playing in so many small gyms, like Laughlin, like Hayes, at least what was shown on TV at Sierra Canyon did not look huge, even though the campus was ginormous. If they just were not used to shooting from these vantage points. But Joe Arbitello's done a fantastic job slowing the team down, getting them to play their game, and a huge difference in that third quarter once again as the third quarter magic for the Royals shining bright against St. Francis Prep.
Pretty remarkable when you think about it, too, because how many teams this year can say that they'll win at Laughlin and win at Hayes? Those are 2 of the tougher venues to play on the road, 2 of the more intimidating gyms, and already in their first 5 games, CK's got wins at both places.
Yeah, but you know what, Dylan? Christ the King is the toughest team to play this year for all these other teams. So there's your answer. I can't wait to see when they play Stepinac, too. That's going to be a fun one with Boogie Fland and company. They're just so loaded, and obviously a team that has been to the final so many years in a row.
Yeah, that game here in Middle Village, it'll be on the ESPN family of networks. Veer Anthony works off the screen by Sacco. It's been a tough day for him to shoot the basketball. He gets to the basket, and a timeout is called. Only his 4th points of this game. A guy in Veer Anthony who came into this game averaging 10.5 points and 6.5 assists per game. Already has offers from Manhattan and Robert Morris.
And the offers will continue to pile up, too. And don't just think that they're going to stop at the MAC either. Probably might get some Power 5 offers there. But you know what? I think the one thing, too, Dylan, in that a lot of these viewers that are watching out there, you see some of the marquee names, and it's not always the top Power 5 schools that can make a player, right? So, for instance, just because we mentioned the school recently, Stepanak, Jordan Tucker, commits to Duke, barely plays, but he's a better fit at a Big East school like Butler. We've seen so many times, time and time again, where these student athletes will get a huge offer from a Power 5, but they're not really getting the playing time, not getting what they signed up for, but they excel at a mid-major. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, look at St. Peter's. They got to the Elite Eight last year. I'm not saying that happens every year, but it's all about the right fit. So, yes, would you love to be offered by Duke and Kentucky? Of course. In North Carolina? But can you really make an impact at, Stephen F. Austin, these schools that are perennially in the tournament, mid-major schools? Why not?
And listen, I'm old school. You have an old school mentality even though you're a younger guy. For me, if you have an opportunity to get a college scholarship and go to school for free and play basketball, I don't care what level it is. You take it. There's terrific basketball being played on the Division II level, Division III level as well.
And the big difference is now you can make money for yourself with these NILs.
Yeah. Alston called for the foul. Varsity Media Sports Network. Next game for us will be Friday. It was originally Friday night, but it'll be a Friday noon tip-off as there's a three-pointer from the corner by Nigel Moore, as it'll be Iona Prep taking on Cardinal Hayes. I suspect that game was moved because of the threats of inclement weather coming into the New York area. So a little bit of an afternoon tip-off as Alston attacks the basket for two.
Nobody wants a home alone situation either.
Pasquarelli to the hole, and a blocking foul was called.
The movie gets stuck in Grand Central. You can get stuck in Grand Concourse. Obviously, don't want that.
Quinfong called for the foul, his third. And this will send Pasquarelli to the line. Nobody in the Catholic League a year ago shot it from beyond the arc better than Pasquarelli. And he's refined his game a little bit this year as well. He's a guy that, because he is the guy, has to score on three different levels, not just be that step-back shooter. But now he's bringing it to the basket. We've seen some incredible dunks from him. He's playing really solid on the defensive side as well. All the things I'm sure John Dunn up at Marist will be excited to see. That's a nice little pipeline as well, right, from Fresh Meadows to Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, it's not that far of a drive. You're not too far from home, so you can see your friends and family on the weekends or whenever you have free time. And yeah, listen, for Marist, they're getting a good find, and you're right. To be the guy, you can't just be a one-trick pony. You need to work on all facets of your game, specifically if you want to get playing time at the next level.
Minute 46 left, 12-point lead for Christ the King.
You know, Dylan, I would be interested to see those keys to the game again if we can from the beginning of the broadcast and see how it's gone out. Because when it came to some of the keys for St. Francis Prep, it was, get Christ the King off balance. I'm trying to remember.
We'll bring it up for you.
Yeah, we'll bring it up. Chris Sweeney's on the ones and twos. He's getting it up now.
There you go.
And there we go. So for Christ the King, take care of the basketball, defend the three-point line, stay level. Well, they've done that in the second half, specifically in that third quarter. For St. Francis Prep, the rebounding really hasn't been there. They've tracked down the long rebounds, and Christ the King wasn't able to tap it back to their own players. Had a foul trouble. There weren't really a lot of fouls called, to be honest, in that first half, and we're starting to see them pick up in the fourth quarter, and they'll only go up more as the Terriers try to get back into this one. And Christ the King was off balance in the first half. So an A+ in that regard for the first half, but overall for the game, St. Francis Prep not as high marks.
Pierce. He is such a tough matchup, man. 12 for him now. Pasquarelli into the lane for two. Another balanced scoring attack. It's not those gaudy numbers that we saw on Sunday. A lot of 8s and 10s right now for Christ the King as Vanterpool goes to the lane, no good. But they are balanced, that is for sure. Sacco. Maybe bailed out, seemed a little bit out of control. Alston called for the foul, his second, and the team's 8th. So Sacco to the line for the single bonus.
Well, you gotta love the camaraderie, right, for Christ the King. If they're all scoring 15 or they're all scoring 8, they're all doing it together.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that Joe Arbitello said he likes about this team that he has this year, where they are together and they do deal with setbacks well. Sacco free throw, no good. Anthony doubled in the corner. The extra pass, Alston. Now you play a little four corners if you are Christ the King. Alston down low. Pierce, oh, Sacco. Pasquarelli. And there's a foul on his way up. Alston complaining about the foul. Veer Anthony saying, well, then tee him up. Arbitello will have his guys back, no doubt. You love the banter. Arbitello saying that he heard, what, 5 smacks,
10.
He said?
No, he said that he heard 10. Carlos said no. Carlos Martinez said it wasn't 10 smacks. Give me 4. Give me 5. I think 1's enough for a foul, though.
I believe so. Foul called. Nigel Moore. It's his 3rd and the 6th, so there's still a foul away if you want to play the possession game and get Christ the King to shoot some free throws. Shot clock is off, though. Final 30 seconds of this one. There's Alston. We invite you to stick around post-game as we'll interview our player of the game. Tough decision for our varsity media committee to choose that. But we'll have those results for you post-game.
We should have a text poll. Ben, if you're listening at home, light up the horn.
Yeah, get a little QR code going.
Yep.
And St. Francis Prep will just allow the clock to wind down. Final seconds. And it is Christ the King. Another win for the Royals. They win this one 54-43. We'll take a quick break and we'll have the player of the game for you when we return. You're watching the CHCA Basketball Showdown presented by Mass Smith Federal on the Varsity Media Sports Network.
You're watching the Varsity Media Sports Network, the home for New York high school sports.
Mass Smith Federal Savings is here through it all. The ins and outs, the ups and downs. Through the winters, the summers, and even the spring of leaks. Know that Mass Smith has your back. From luxury sheets to balance sheets to dancing under the stars, your mission is our mission. And when our community calls, we proudly step forward. So whether you need it now or planning for tomorrow, through all the twists and all the turns, you can always find us right here in your neighborhood.
You're watching the Varsity Media Sports Network, the home for New York high school sports.
Varsity Media covers every sport at every level from every angle. Game film, recruiting videos, highlight videos, sportscasts,
Thunder, and what a look!
photography, live streaming. You name it, we offer it. Don't leave your video needs to amateurs. Trust the pros. Contact us at 516-403-2050 or visit us online at varsitymedia.net.
Welcome back to Christ the King. Final score here. The Royals with a 54-43 win over St. Francis Prep. Christ the King improves to 4-2 on the season. St. Francis Prep suffering their first defeat of the year. We're joined now courtside by our player of the game. It's Dwayne Pierce, and we could have, John, probably gone a few different ways. A lot of balanced scoring, again, for the Royals, but Dwayne picked you to be the player. First of all, congratulations on the win. Another tough one, another big third quarter. It seems like these back-to-back games now where it's a tight game at halftime, either what is said at halftime, maybe the PG version of that, or what do you guys do maybe better in that third quarter?
I think we just contributing together, playing hard, and just trusting each other. Because sometimes we come out weak, but then we try to pick up each other and play hard and just come together as a team, as a family.
Dwayne, how much of a difference has that been from last year to this year, too, the unselfishness and the camaraderie that you guys have built?
I think it's because we all want to win. Last year, we had some struggles. We had a lot of ups and downs. But this year, I feel like we trust each other as a team. We trust our coaches. And, yeah, we just want to win.
No three-quarter shot to beat the buzzer at the half like you did on Sunday, but a solid effort overall, 12 points for you. And it feels like, speaking about your game, you're a matchup problem, because you could put it on the court, you could play outside, but you could also kick it inside and get those tough points around the basket.
Yeah, honestly, I can't do this without my team, though. They help me a lot. They push me. They trust me with the ball, and we trust each other. It makes me look good, makes us all look good.
With the way that you guys have been playing, Brandon said in the win over Cardinal Hayes, you guys are going to be tough to beat. I'd imagine that's probably the feeling in the locker room, too. How do you guys keep each other up? Because after a win against Cardinal Hayes, it's easy to, kind of start feeling yourself and overlook St. Francis Prep. But for you guys, in that second half, you turn it around.
We just try to tell each other to stay positive. Like I said, last year we had a lot of ups and downs, and we just won a lot of games last year. But this year, we can't lack. There's a lot of good teams in the league. We can't overlook nobody. We have to trust the process, keep practicing hard, keep playing hard, and just keep winning, trusting each other as well.
I have to ask you, because we didn't get a chance to talk to you after Sunday. Can you take us?
Really just adrenaline.
So you don't practice it?
I mean, you can ask my teammates. I make a lot of those in practice.
So you didn't think Skyhook, you just flung it up there and that was it?
Just shot it.
All right.
I think the best part of that, too, is that literally it was a walk-off, right? Like, it ended the half. You were just ran to the locker room, and it seemed like it did kind of set the tone for you guys in that third quarter. Shooter, the other freshman, you guys took the lead there, and then you just never, you put your foot on the neck, and you just put them away.
Yeah, after that made us all hype, made us feel like we could win, made us feel like whether it's ups and downs, whether we playing bad, whether we playing good, we're going to win. Because we're going to trust each other, we're going to play hard, we're going to play together, we're going to play the right way.
Another win for the Royals. Dwayne Pierce, big part of that. Congratulations and best of luck going forward.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, so big win for Christ the King. The Royals improved to 4-2 on the season, 3-0 in the Catholic Basketball League. And St. Francis Prep suffers their first loss, 5-1, 3-1. Terriers came into this game kind of wondering where were they and how do they match up. I think disappointed in aspects of the game, certainly disappointed in losing. But, John, I think they probably leave here figuring that, listen, if Christ the King is the team to beat, well, they could be right there.
Look at the tape of the first half if you're Jimmy Lynch, and you show that to your team every step of the way if you want to show how to defend and how to go against the team that has the size advantage, because they were executing in all facets of the game in the first half. Christ the King was just the better team. The talent won out in the third quarter, but there's no reason to believe that St. Francis Prep can't split with Christ the King in the regular season or perhaps win in March in a diocesan or had, dare you say, the intersectional later on. But a good effort by St. Francis Prep, just outdueled today by the talent of the Christ the King Royals, who deserve to win this contest.
Programming reminder for you again, next up on the Varsity Media Sports Network, we'll have Iona Prep and Cardinal Hayes Friday at noon on the Grand Concourse here on the Varsity Media Sports Network. That'll do it here from Middle Village for our entire crew. It was our A-plus crew here tonight in Middle Village. Our technical director, Chris Sweeney, bringing you all those moving images. Of course, it's Ron Pierre and Angelo Caeso for my broadcast partner, John Perez, and, of course, executive producer Ben Turch and Dylan Butler. Thanking you for joining us from Christ the King, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Varsity Media Sports Network.